My name is Maria Lerner, and my play is called The Chained Wife. It takes place in an unnamed town in the Russian Empire, in the Pale of Settlement around 1880, where the successful Jewish merchant, Mr. Grossman, and his wife live with their daughter, Rosa. Rosa and Adolphe, Grossman's loyal bookkeeper, are quietly in love. But there's a class difference between them, and Mr. Grossman would not approve. Both of them know this, and they are too respectful of his wishes to pursue their romance further. Grossman wants Rosa to marry Mr. Newman, a sophisticated Jewish broker from Moscow with whom he has recently been doing business. Grossman sends Adolphe out of town on business and puts pressure on him not to communicate with Rosa. A long time passes without Rosa hearing from Adolphe, and so, in deference to her father, she marries Newman. Less than a year later, the Grossmans discover Newman to be a gambler and a scoundrel who has cheated Grossman in business. Soon, Newman abandons Rosa without giving her a writ of divorce, leaving her a chained widow, an aguna, who can neither divorce her husband nor remarry. We're in the Grossman's house. Rosa and Adolphe have just been reunited. She worries about her father, who has taken it all very badly.
He's lying down. Hopefully he can get some rest. I was afraid he might have another attack like he had the other week.
The reason he's doing worse than us, Rosa, is because it's his fault that any of this happened at all. It was his own doing. Could you have ever imagined we'd find ourselves in such a situation?
Why, yes, I could, Adolphe. I remember how you used to speak to me. You said something like this would happen if we weren't always here for each other. What we wanted so desperately to be between us, it was possible. But Newman is a rare type of man.
You didn't want to believe me. It could have been something entirely different if your father hadn't been so fooled by Newman and so bothered by the attraction between us. We could have been so happy.
Oh, don't speak of my dear father that way. You see how he's suffering now, how sick he's become over this? The matter gives him no rest.
The matter wouldn't give anyone rest.
You're mistaken, my dear. I myself am quite calm. I don't let myself be terrified by the thought that I might be left here an abandoned wife. Our love must be realized through an honest, decent life together. Believe me, Adolphe, one fleeting moment of your love is worth more to me than anything in the world. What else does a person need? I considered you dead to me, and now I have you again.
Oh, Rosa, how could I possibly redeem myself from how I've sinned against you? How could I possibly answer for how little I knew you, my intelligent Rosa? But I've already been punished, and it's punishment enough to see you here before my eyes, knowing you love me as much as a person can love, and yet you cannot be mine.
Why can't I be yours? I am only yours. If I cannot be your wife, I'll be your sister. Listen to me, Adolphe. When I really think it over, I can see our relationship divided into 3 parts. You'll see how peaceful, how joyful these phases can make us, especially the last part, if we think about it this way. It's bittersweet. In the first part, I was your beloved Rosa. I love remembering those moments. The second phase is when I was your bride, but not your living bride. No, your adorned and beloved bride lying in her grave, your dead bride. She was lying in her grave when she went to the canopy with Newman. But after that, at long last, we can finally enter into the third and final phase, the period of our love, and feel happy and joyous and glad.
No, we can feel neither happy nor glad. That man will have abandoned you forever.
Wait! The word should be stronger, I think. It isn't that she is just abandoned. She is also kept from having a life and a family with another man.
So, anchored? Or what about an imprisoned wife?
Yes, An aguna is a kind of prisoner, but the word imprison doesn't work. Use the word chained here, and not just chained, but chained wife.
That man will keep you a chained wife forever. What is stopping him? We need to find him and force him to release you.
Well, when we are released from him, we will cross that bridge. In the meantime, I must believe with every bone in my body. I must completely immerse myself in the possibility of that third phase of our love, when I am no longer your bride, but your sister. How dear we are to each other in this form. Your sister, Adolphe, is your best friend. You will always be able to talk to her about your deceased bride because she knew her so well. And if there comes a time when your wounds are completely healed and another woman can take the place of your dead bride, then your sister will no longer exist for you. And it just may be that then you will build a new and joyous life for yourself. I don't want you, on my account, to deny yourself the greatest joy life has to offer, which is that of a family.
Rosa, you may be able to make yourself happy through all of these fantasies of yours, but I cannot. I can only find joy in reality. Fantasies do not make my situation any easier. I cannot lull myself into denial. What is it we are chained to, Rosa? To Newman's will. You are not the first, and you will not be the last to bear the name of a chained wife. How many women, young and fair, are faced with living their whole lives with this mark of abandonment? So many Jewish daughters are paralyzed. They see a beautiful world before their eyes. They want to move, but they're chained. There are so many causes for their suffering, but more than anything, it is caused by women being materially dependent upon men. He who gives bread, he is a master. Yes, much time will still pass before a woman is no longer chained to the man any more than the man is to the woman.
There should at least be a limited and specified amount of time that we must wait for a man who has abandoned his wife. But to be entirely with no limit, it's worse than being punished as a criminal.
No, there's no limit. Maybe one day it'll be different. If the rabbis wanted, they would make it so. There have been some who've written about it. You see, a man who has been thrown out by a woman can remarry. But when does a woman want to throw out her husband? Where does a woman have such a free world? Where does a woman get the kind of education that would allow her to live independently? Seldom does a woman throw out her husband, but still, an abandoned husband can seek freedom. Avenues for a man's freedom have always existed. Men have always had more rights than women, even among us, where women are more valued than among other peoples.
How do you suppose the rabbis would be able to make it so that women can also be freed from being forever a chained wife?
And one possibility, when the groom puts the ring on the bride's finger, as he says, "Behold, this ring, with this ring you are betrothed to me," he should insert the words that she will be his wife under all circumstances except if he should leave her for more than 3 years.
Behold, with this ring you are betrothed to me.
Yes. With this ring, you are betrothed to me.
Rosa and Adolphe get lost for a moment.
So why is that not always the way it's done?
The rabbis don't rush to resolve such questions. You and I, my dear Rosalie, we won't see this reform in our lifetime. If only Israel would return with that divorce. That way we could freely discuss these larger questions with a little less suffering.
It's been a long time since we've received a letter from him. Not since he wrote from Kiev that he was traveling to Odessa and from there back home. We haven't heard a word from him. I simply don't know what to think.
I'm sure the reason he hasn't written is because he's expecting to return home soon, but with or without a divorce, that I don't know.
However, it turns out we've worried enough.
Well, Rosalie, I must go. I'll be busy until 8. Try to relax. You said yourself that your own will has the power to calm you down, so don't be too worried, dear.
Why do you fret like this? Why do you feel so hopeless about the situation?
When I see your troubles, I forget all about mine. I'm going. Ashamed that we must work. I would much prefer to remain here.
Adolphe.
Bye, Rosa.
Ale Prelutsky. My play is called One of Those, and it takes place in the Russian Empire of the early 20th century. We first meet Judith, the play's main character, in her family's home near Warsaw. Though a year has passed, she is still despondent over her mother's death. She resents her father's remarriage and her stepmother's taking over of the household. After an ugly argument, Judith leaves home. By Act 2, 8 years have passed, and Judith is living in a well-furnished apartment in St. Petersburg. She is visited by Pepe, a prostitute who still works in the brothel in which Judith had worked not long before. Pepe came with Bobby, Judith's 4-year-old daughter, whom Judith had allowed to live in the brothel. Tatiana, Judith's housekeeper, watches Bobby while Pepe visits with Judith.
Sometimes I just don't understand you at all. What were you crying about before when I came in? I could see it. I thought you'd never cry again. Did something happen between you?
God forbid. He's an amazing person. Since the day he took me out of there, he never once made me unhappy. Not once. He loves me. He treasures me. Not once did he remind me that I came from up there. Not for a second. He's like an angel who spread his wings over me.
So why aren't you satisfied? What more do you want?
I got a letter today from Warsaw, from an old friend. You remember, the one who used to write me. She thinks I'm a teacher, that I make a living by giving lectures. She's been married several years already, and in every letter she tells me how happy she is with her family. Today she wrote that my father lost a lot of money in business, and his new wife has long since left him, so my father is having a lot of trouble, and he's old, and he's alone.
What do you care? That old bastard, wasn't it all his fault? What happened to you? Some father. Good for him.
Don't say that. A father is still a father. And a lot of that was my fault. I shouldn't have left. I should have stayed there and dealt with it. I was a child. I was reckless. I shouldn't have gone out into the world alone. Maybe it hurts him that I'm not there. I wish I could see him even from a distance. It's been 6 years, and I fight with myself almost every day about whether I should go back.
I remember when you first came upstairs. You told me what happened, how you wound up in all that. It was your father. He drove you to it. I got so angry at him. If I'd had him in my hands, I'd have torn him to pieces. Ugh, I'm so stupid to remind you about up there. You need to forget it. Just toss it aside like it's some awful dream.
You can't forget that. It won't let you. It's always inside you, wherever you go.
Listen to you. Knock that out of your head. It's done with. You're lucky you got yourself out quick. Me, I can't even remember how long I've been there. And I'm going to die there. And then they'll bury me behind the fence. With people like me, they don't stand on any ceremonies. You lived in the swamp, they bury you behind the fence.
You lived in the swamp, they bury you behind the fence?
You know what, I can't stand it upstairs anymore. I've been so lonely since you left. Sometimes I wish it would all end, and that people like me would never be born.
You're being silly. Things could get better for you too. You're still young. You're pretty. I have always been fond of you. You're also different from the rest. You were the only one I could really talk to, pour my heart out to so many times. You know what? Come back home with me. I'll bring you. I have enough money for both of us. If you just get yourself out of there, you'd find a better way to live. Back home, nobody will know who you are or who you were.
Nobody will know who you were? You're wrong. Look at me. Look at me. Don't you see it? It's engraved on my forehead who I am. It's permanent. What could you make out of someone like me? Could girls like me pass off as respectable people? We'd never stop shaking. Why would you want to drag my past along with you? What I've done, I've been away so long where I came from that it's like I didn't really come from anywhere, that I was just born like this.
When you slip the first time, you think you've learned a lesson for your whole life. But that's not true. You're not even aware of it, but you stumble and then you fall and you get deeper and deeper. It was so fast how it happened. Before I could turn around, unbelievable. When I left my father's house, from the first minute I lost the ground under my feet. When I was fired from that restaurant, I was waiting tables and I insulted a customer. He was rude. And I'll never forget that moment. I found myself on an empty street outside the city. There was nobody there, just me and a cloudy sky. I cried out to my mother in her grave that she should do something for me. She should look out from the grave and see what's happening with her favorite child and the child she saw herself in. But no, she didn't do that. And before I could even look around me, I was lost.
What do you think you'll do about the child? Listen to me. Leave her with us. She's good there. She's raising herself. It's beautiful, and you can take her back whenever you want.
No. You have to leave her here now. She mustn't go back up there anymore. What would she end up as? Another one of those? I can't allow that. That would be criminal, just criminal. And I don't love her. She's a stranger to me. I feel more drawn to any child on the street than I do to her. She reminds me of my past, but I can't leave her here.
You'll take her with you?
Yes, I will. But please, dear, don't tell them upstairs. Say she's staying with me overnight.
He'll tear my head off, and the child will miss us. Now I'm really alone. You're going home like you ought to. And will you even remember me there? Write to me sometimes, will you?
Papa, maybe you'll take my advice and come with me.
I can't change my life. For me, that's all there is. Good luck, Judith.
I still hope that you'll be able to save yourself like I did, and I won't give up on you. I'll keep my eyes open. Maybe I'll be able to get you out of here.
Be well, Judith. Don't forget me.
They embrace.
Have a good trip.
Good luck.
Tatiana enters with Bobby.
Where's Miss Peppa?
She left.
Oh? She left the child here? Will Bobby stay with us then?
You love that child so much, don't you?
Like my own.
Tell me, would you like to have her stay with you for a bit?
Madam is making fun of me. How can I take her in with me when I live here with you?
You see, I'm going to visit my home. I need to leave St. Petersburg for Warsaw today. I can't take the child with me. I'll leave you some money for food.
You're joking.
I mean it. You're a very honorable person, and I'm happy to leave her with you.
Could that really be true?
The doorbell rings.
That must be the gentleman.
Oh, Judith, dearest, how are you? These last 4 days have felt like 4 years, 4 days away from your silken hair, 4 years out of your beautiful arms. Oh, Judith.
He sees Bobby.
Oh, and look who's here. Hello, Bobby. How are you? So you do listen to me. Oh, you're a gem. So does this mean she'll be staying with us? What are you planning? I don't care whose daughter she is. She's your child, and she's just as pretty as her mother.
The officer sits on the sofa between Judith and Bobby and pulls them both to him.
Ah, what a pair of beauties. One is a rose in full bloom, the other is a little bud on her side. And you both smell just as sweet. Now, go to sleep and I'll sing you a lullaby.
Is das eine russische Volkslied? It must be the lullaby. It can't be Yiddish or English. It needs to be a Russian lullaby.
In Russian?
Yes, The point is that it is not native to Judith. It is a song the officer is deeply attached to, and also it's from a culture being imposed upon its Jews. But it's not just that. The Russian lullaby also shows the fatherly instincts of the officer, a parental instinct that Judith lacks. Even in translation, it must be Russian.
Yes, and I'll sing you a Russian song. Bire akatsie, grozda dushistye, vnov aramatam palme, vnov разливается песня лавиная. Friham Sianya Lunya. You know what? We'll go to Valseva's concert today, and my beautiful lady will sit enchanted listening to Valseva singing. Oh, we'll make an evening of it. Just put the baby to sleep, huh? You know, those 4 days of maneuvers got me so worked up. You can't imagine how angry I kept getting. I couldn't stop screaming at them. I was like a madman. I drove them all so crazy. The maneuvers went like blind man's bluff. It was a mess. Hey, what did you do for 4 whole days? Promenade?
You know I don't like to walk on the street.
I don't like to hear that. 4 whole days inside in this heat, it's not healthy. You're gonna have to pay for that. From now on, you and Bobby are going out every day on a constitutional. Has she been here long?
Just since today, Peppa brought her around like she always does.
She's a very nice young woman.
Well, she's lost, unfortunately. It's very sad.
Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. It's not important, really. I had a bit of a run-in with Ivan. Imagine, he got himself good and drunk and just babbled on and on about you. And when I told him I'd shove it down his throat, well, one thing led to another, and he said he's going to inform on me to my father.
So? Are you afraid of your father's finding out about us?
No, it's not that, but he might tell my father you're Jewish.
And then?
You know, that as the mayor, he can order you to leave the city within 24 hours.
For what?
I'll explain, sweetheart. A Jew, you see, who is not working at the job listed on their residency permit loses the privilege of living outside the Pale of Settlement.
Oh, really? So when I was still up there, I, as a Jew, could stay in the city for years, but not anymore? So it seems your father's job is to throw decent people out of the city and keep indecent ones in. You'll probably be the mayor yourself someday, and I'd advise you not to uphold that law.
What's the matter with you? You're so easy to upset. It really bothers me that you can't just get over these things. But you don't have to worry. There's a way out. I've already been thinking about it. We'll get married. Did you hear, Judith?
He kisses her.
We'll get married.
Married? How? You're a Christian, and I'm Jewish.
You know, sweetheart, what has to be done. One person is required to convert. It's illegal for me to become a Jew, so you'll have to become a Christian.
Absolutely not. That I will never do. I could lie to every person in the world, but to fool God himself, that I am not capable of.
That's just childish. When you love someone, you do everything for them. It's no sacrifice. And I know you love me, at least a little. You do love me.
Yes. You're the first person that ever had a hold on my heart. But to convert? No. Definitely not.
Well, my love, we'll see. Now, you just take it easy, and we'll deal with that later on. And just now, with inexpressible regret, it behooves me to inform you that we must part. I have to go down to the regiment to present a report. You, darling, you get yourself ready. You'll want to look your best. We're going to a concert. Put on your white dress, and by 7 o'clock, I'll be back at your feet. And take good care of Bobby for you. You must treat her with respect, Bobby. In a little while, I'm going to bring you some very fancy chocolate. Now, you be good to her.
Judith rises and unruffles and brushes off the skirt of her dress as she thinks.
Tanya? Tanya?
What do you wish, madam?
Tanya, what do you think about what we discussed earlier?
Madam, are you sure? Until today, you never even mentioned that you might leave. Perhaps, madam, you might put it off for a while. It's a pity, for the gentleman's sake. Really, a pity. You see it, right? He truly loves you.
Tanya, nothing in this world could delay me. I must go. My father is very old, and that's why I'm asking this of you. It would be a great kindness if you could take in the child. I can't take her with me, and leaving her up there with Papa and the girls would be terrible. You need not worry that you'll be raising a Jewish child. God alone knows what that child is. Will you do it?
Madam, I'm very sorry to see you go. You were such a kind person. But if God wants me to bring up your daughter, then I will bring her up just like she was my own child. You won't have to worry.
Please, Tanya, pack my clothes in the laundry from the dresser into the wooden trunk that's in the hallway and dress the child. But quickly, please, we have to rush. We have to leave here as soon as possible. The train leaves at 5. Hurry, Tanya, hurry.
Judith sits at her desk and she writes.
I beg your forgiveness. Don't think badly of me. You're young. There is a great world out there. Judith.
Tanya re-enters with Bobby, both dressed to leave.
Swear to me, Tanya, that you will never tell her who her mother was.
Tanya begins to cry. She crosses herself, and then she takes Judith's hand and kisses it.
Madam, I swear to you that she will never find out anything from me.
Come, Tanya, quickly.
Hello, my name now is Lena Brown. My play is called Sonia Idson, or A Child, a Child. When we first meet Sonia, she's 28 years old, she's independent, she has no desire for marriage or children, but she is falling in love with a younger man named Leo. Early in the play, her sister Fanny, married to Simon, gives birth to a girl. By this scene, which takes place in Sonia and Leo's apartment, each of the two sisters is engaged in her own complicated struggle with motherhood. Fanny, pregnant again, wants an abortion, while Sonia, desperate to give her husband Leo a child, considers a potentially dangerous surgery. Sonia is hurriedly buttoning up her simple dress when the doorbell rings.
Who is it, please?
Open up and you'll see.
Is that you, Fanny?
Sonia opens the door.
Oh, you're in the middle of dressing.
I'm not in the middle, I'm done.
What kind of dress is that? You could have worn something nicer on a morning like this.
Yes, it's a beautiful day, but for where I'm going, this dress will do.
Where are you going? And why do you look so anxious?
Anxious. Don't be silly. When something has to be done, you just do it, and that's that.
I know where you're going.
I might be a fool, but you're even worse. What's there to be upset about? Don't make this harder for me.
Leo is allowing you to go?
And if he didn't allow me, I'm a grown woman, and I feel I have to do this. There is no other way.
And Dave, your brother, a doctor? What does Dave say?
You're being childish. What difference does it make what he says? I'm telling you I've decided, and there's nothing more to say about it. And you can find out what he thinks from him. He'll be here shortly. I'm going out for a while. I have to go over to the drugstore to phone the hospital.
Fanny takes off her hat and sets it down. Simon enters.
I just saw Sonia. She told me you were here alone. Are you ashamed to admit the condition you're in?
Fanny takes out a compact and powders her face.
Oh, now you look like a lady again. I can still see you've been crying, but it doesn't matter.
Well, thank God it doesn't matter.
Now, darling, tell me the truth. What's really going on here?
Sonia's going to have the operation.
So, what else is new? I've been hearing about this operation for ages. Is that why you've been crying?
We're not just talking about it now. She's about to go to the hospital.
Really? It's decided?
Absolutely. She's all ready to go.
It's probably for the best. Huh? Let her do it already and settle the matter once and for all. And if it works, then great. And if not, she'll know not to bother with it anymore.
This isn't just about her getting help. Dave says that she's putting her life on the line with this operation.
Well, why is she doing it? Is someone forcing her? Demanding that she have children? You know, I've heard about things like that, but Leo wouldn't do that. He's a wonderful person. He's a diamond. He's an absolute angel.
Yes, a diamond, an angel, but still a child. I don't doubt that Sonia is putting her life on the line more for him than for herself.
Well, she shouldn't do it then. It's ridiculous. If there are children, fine. If there aren't, it's no reason to kill yourself.
That's easy for you to say when you know we could have more.
But you see, we don't want any more. Oh, yes, I almost forgot. Did Sonia lend you the money?
No, I didn't even ask. How could I bother her at a time like this?
We'll manage without her help. We'll have plenty of money next week.
But I need it tomorrow.
You mean for the doctor?
Yes, he's leaving tomorrow for a month's vacation.
And will it be too late to have the abortion?
Wait. I don't think Simon says the word abortion here. Is that what's written in the original?
Nope, the word isn't in the original.
We don't use that word unless we're protesting. I mean, politically. We don't use it as something a woman needs on a personal level.
Leva, isn't it 2023?
Yes, it's 2023.
No one knows exactly when I wrote this play because I never dated it. But it was about 100 years ago, around 1923. So I didn't use the word.
We still wouldn't use the word. It doesn't feel natural.
And it will be too late when the doctor gets back.
What are you talking about? Don't you know that the sooner you deal with these things, the better? You don't want what happened to Stella to happen to me. She put it off until too late.
No, so what would be the great tragedy if we left things as they are? Huh? The Bermans also have only one child. They only have a son, and for her to have a little daughter we could have a little boy.
And you know that's what it would be.
Even if it were a girl.
Whatever it might be, I don't want to be bothered with any babies. If we don't have the money, I'll ask Dave to lend it to us. He'll be here shortly.
Are you a fool? Do you think I'm saying this because of the money?
I don't care why you're saying it. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Do you hear me?
Simon takes her in his arms.
It's okay, darling. It's all right. If you don't want it, we don't need it. There's no need to cry. I'll get the money for the doctor today, but don't ask Dave. I hate to borrow from him. First of all, he'll figure out why we need it, and I don't want to hear his badgering go on about why we can't get along on my salary, and it's time to live responsibly.
Is he wrong? It is embarrassing to always have to borrow. What would we do if we had a big family?
We'd be richer than we are now.
Really richer, with more mouths to feed.
Don't you know what I mean, darling? We would lead different lives if there were little ones in the house. We would stay at home. If we didn't go anywhere, we wouldn't spend money.
Who is stopping you from doing things differently? Is it my fault? I am always asking you to be a little prudent. Did we have to go to that wedding yesterday? It cost way too much. My dress alone was over $100. Was that really necessary? If I had that money now, I could have saved myself all this worrying.
You're a fool. Who's making you feel guilty? Who's asking you to worry? You've never lacked for anything, and you won't lack for anything now either. We had to go to the wedding, just like we have to go to wherever it is we go. Why not? Our daughter isn't a baby anymore, so there's nothing to keep us at home. And you're a free bird, so So why shouldn't I take my little bird out and fly around with her?
He takes her hands and dances her around.
Let go of me. Let go of me, I'm begging you.
Give me a kiss. Give me a kiss, and I'll let you go.
Hello, everyone. And while we're shifting this over, I'll say a brief word. My name is Alex Weiser. I'm the Director of Public Programs of YIVO. Thank you all so much for joining us to celebrate this new book, 3 Yiddish Plays by Women. We're really pleased to be inaugurating this new series, Yiddish Voices, edited by Elissa Quint and Elissa Bemporad here at YIVO, and supported by the family of Harriet Yaski. This is a new series which puts into translation hitherto untranslated Yiddish works from our collections, and it's a at our core, YIVO is an archive and a library with over 23 million documents and over 400,000 books. And bringing the world of those collections to life is what we do here. Whether it's to researchers who are using those materials to write new scholarship, or through translations like in this series, through public programs like this, and we have a variety of programs throughout the year. I encourage you to come back. We teach Yiddish. We have classes on Jewish culture and history. We have exhibitions. And so we're really pleased to add this wonderful new series into our offerings, and we're really grateful to Elissa and Elissa for helping us make this happen. I would now like to invite up Evan Yaski to say a few words, and then we're going to hear from Elissa and Elissa, and we'll have a little conversation about this new book.
Unorthodox, but thank you so much. Yes, my name is Evan Yaski. Harriet was my mother, but first I want to just say thank you to the folks here at YIVO who have been so welcoming and so thoughtful in putting together this program. It's deeply appreciated. So to all the folks, Jonathan Brent, Melissa Cohn, Alex Weider, Julia Rothkopf, we really appreciate all the work that you did to make this event possible. And also to thank some of the folks that my mom had a chance to work with during her life, Hasia Diner and Alyssa and Elissa. So thank you for your partnership with my mom. So many of you knew my mom. But for those who didn't, she grew up in the 1940s and 50s in suburban Long Island. She went to Barnard. She got married right after graduation, and by the age of 26, she had 3 children. But that was just the beginning for her. Her ambition drove her to pursue a law degree while also juggling the demands of parenting infants and toddlers. Upon receiving her JD, women made up a very tiny percentage of practicing attorneys, and those that made it through school were typically persuaded to specialize in a few, usually less lucrative areas of the law. After a few years in trust and estates group, she forged a different path in entertainment law, leading business affairs for Jim Henson Associates, creating the first international agreements for the NBA, the National Basketball Association. By her early 60s, the glamour of a fast-paced corporate lifestyle and career had begun to fade for her. She realized there were other priorities in life that she wanted to devote time towards, not least of which were 4 young grandchildren, and a 5th would come in her late 60s. And to see one of those grandchildren on stage tonight participating and bringing a play like this to life after many years, the cavelling would be tremendous. Her approach to grandparenting was as ambitious as her career pursuits. She took them to Boston to walk the Freedom Trail, to Chicago to see the works of Frank Lloyd Wright, to rural Tennessee to visit the Paperclip School, where an innovative elementary school teacher had her students collect 6 million paperclips as a way to connect with the losses suffered during the Holocaust. She gained energy from her family, and it fueled other interests, including working with professors, doing research in Jewish culture and history. I feel that the work she did here at YIVO was to be of service, to contribute to the larger story of the Jewish diaspora, but was also, in a way, an attempt to grapple with deeper questions of her own history and identity. I think that she wanted to see herself as part of a larger story, and YIVO afforded her a chance to explore this. So thank you to those of you that work at YIVO and similar organizations. The meaning of your work is hard to measure and often goes underappreciated. And for this, my family and I are deeply grateful that this gift is able to help ensure this work continues into the next generation. Thank you. And now, Alyssa and Elissa.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Elissa Bemporad, and this is Alyssa Quint, and we are thrilled to welcome you to the launch of Yiddish Voices. In establishing it, we wanted to curate a series of works that connects today's readers with Jewish literature, mostly but not exclusively Yiddish literature, in its full range of authors, genres, and subject matter. We also want to make these treasures available to the broadest audience possible. We are already at work on future volumes that include a powerful literary account about the pogroms in Ukraine in 1919, penned by the writer Rochel Feigenberg, who herself witnessed and survived the destruction. Future volumes also include a collection of short stories by writer Yechiel Hofer, which gives the reader an intimate look at Hasidic life in the Stieblach of early 20th century Warsaw, translated and edited by Jonathan Boyarin. They include a novel by one of the greatest Yiddish writers of all times, Chaim Grade, which has never been published in book form, entitled Women from the Ghetto, which tells the story of a community of survivors in Vilna immediately after the war. This will be translated and edited by David Fishman. And future volumes also include a memoir about Jewish bohemians in Montparnasse, written by Polish-Jewish art critic Gil Aronson, who socialized with the likes of Picasso and Chagall in 1930s avant-garde Paris. Our next volume, out in 2024, showcases the memoirs of the legendary actress Esther Rochel Kaminska, the mother of Yiddish theater. It features an introduction by Michal Yashinsky and a preface by the wonderful actress Tova Felcher. So tonight is just the beginning. Please stay tuned for future volumes and future Yiddish Voices events here at YIVO. Elissa.
Thank you. Thanks, Elissa. Thanks for coming, everybody. Before we sit down with the translators of these plays, who are all here tonight, I wanted to say a few words about Harriet and the Yaski family. Harriet came to work at YIVO's archive as a volunteer around January 2017, when I was there as a scholar in residence working on the Vilna collections. Harriet came in twice a week for about a year before she was forced to leave for health reasons. When Harriet first arrived, she mentioned that she was very willing to help and learn, but she didn't know the languages she needed but for a little Yiddish. So I invited her to help me with inputting information into the computer and making photocopies. She was happy to do the work. She loved being at YIVO. Harriet found every historical document and artifact that surfaced endlessly fascinating. She listened and learned whenever anyone had a story to share. She was supremely pleasant to be with. A few months into her time at YIVO, she offered to copy edit my book, at which point I realized that I had an assistant that was not underqualified, as she had represented to me, but overqualified. She was a careful editor of any copy I gave her to look at, and she hunted down bibliographic information, and she reshaped my prose. By this point, Harriet and I had become friends. I heard stories about her kids and her grandchildren. I still did not know the extent of her career background. I think I figured that many women of her generation did not have careers that matched their skills, and she must have been one of them. Why else would she not have mentioned any of it to me? Of course, I could not be farther from the truth when it came to Harriet, who was an accomplished entertainment lawyer and an executive at Henson Associates, so basically a lawyer for the Muppets and for the NBA. I learned this much because she mentioned them to me casually in a cab ride we once shared after a YIVO event, much like this one tonight. But while I was processing this amazement, my amazement over her, Harriet was already back to her focus on Yiddish culture. For me, Harriet was the gift that kept on giving. Everything I did, she made easier and better, and then she told me how interesting it was. When you work on culture that most people find very obscure, this is very gratifying. Finally, Harriet and I cracked up a lot together, and I can only imagine that those of you who knew her know how true this is. So I'm very proud to have known her, and it's been an honor to get to know her family over the past year. The same intelligence, Menschlichkeit, and curiosity that I saw in Harriet, I see in her children and her grandchildren. Like Harriet, they put the many fascinating things they do to the side to truly dig into understanding and supporting the series. I appreciate the many conversations I had with David about it and the many questions that the family raised that allowed Elissa and I to refine our vision of the series. It was a special pleasure to work with Margaret and Susan Yaski on tonight's performance. Susan was on stage and consulted on the script, and Margaret was our stage manager. I want to thank Lester Yaski and the entire Yaski family for their generous donation to the series. I thank you for the confidence you put in us as the editors and for putting your good name on the series. The gesture means so much, and the Yaski name means so much. So thank you. Now, I invite the translators to the stage for a few minutes to discuss the plays we showcase tonight, and we'll take some questions from the audience. I think because we started late, we'll do this for a few minutes. We'll do one question each. So please welcome Alan Lewis Rickman, Zissel Piazza, and Miro Minyevsky to the stage, please. Thank you. Yeah, sit down. I already have a mic, so I'll sit over here. Okay. So I guess in chronological order. So The Chained Widow, the first play that we saw tonight, premiered in the Russian Empire in the 1880s, and it was published in Yiddish around the same time. There's really no evidence that it was staged since those initial performances during Maria Lerner's lifetime. So, Zissel, to your mind, what is the value of translating something this old? Is it just a historical artifact to be studied? Or is there something that we can bring to the stage that's compelling to an audience of today?
Yeah, well, I mean, I found the performance that the actors did earlier very compelling, so that was super exciting. Yeah, I think, you know, Maria Lerner is not a name that we know, but she really was a pioneer. This is the oldest Yiddish play by a woman playwright that we know about, I think. And I think that there's a lot of space for, because we know that she wrote this play to be performed in the theater that her husband owned. I think that one of the challenges of translating was also that I imagine that there was a lot of information that was communicated verbally in the context of producing the play that was not necessarily recorded. And so I think that actually offers an opportunity for really rich and to have some creative license for staging the play. And also, yeah, in addition to kind of like the historical significance, I'm really glad that the scene was chosen that was. It's a super rich scene that goes on to get into kind of the weeds of the rabbinic history around the issue of the aguna, or I mean, Maria Lerner came back from the dead to critique my word choice of abandoned, but the chained wife, so to speak, which is an issue in rabbinic Judaism that remains to this day, that a lot of women, probably maybe fewer now, but still women struggle with. And the richness of the kind of feminists' dreaming and problem solving that is on display in that scene was very exciting for me when I read it. And you know, I think we as Americans, we come from a particular American feminist tradition, liberal feminist tradition, and it's always helpful to kind of think about feminisms in different times and places, and I think that the opportunity in this play is like, you know, how can a growing intimacy with a feminism that may be in some of our own cultural heritage for those of us who are Ashkenazi Jews, can be a way that we can also develop intimacy across cultures, and kind of be more grounded in our history as we like show up in solidarity with feminisms across the world. Yeah.
That's lovely. Thank you. Yeah. So turning from Zissel to Alan Lewis Rickman, I guess we're turning from a strictly scholarly background to one of a scholar theater person who's primarily an actor and director, although you wear so many hats, Alan. Alan translated the second play, one of those, and I don't think your interest in Prelutsky's play was part of the larger project of that's ongoing in the field of Yiddish culture to recover texts by women. That was not necessarily your aim in translating this. So explain what drew you to this play, and perhaps talk about how you once put it to me, the difference between a problem play and a character story, and how that affects translation and adaptation.
Sure. So,
or wherever you want to go with that.
What drew me to the play, you're right, it wasn't specifically issues involved. I mean, it's a feminist play. It's a proto-feminist play, so historically, that added a certain frisson, that made it a little extra interesting. But at the same time, that's not what drew me to it. What drew me to it is I think it's a first-rate play. Speaking to that question of the difference between a problem play and a more or less straight drama is, it does not feel like Paula Perlutsky wrote this play in order to teach a lesson. She wrote this play because she felt like she knew this person whose story it is. And this person's story is compelling, and it is extremely well told. And it's particularly what's particularly I find very interesting in the play, if you read the whole thing, if you read the play in the book, you'll see this, is it's very, very modern in the way she tells the story. Exposition, things like that are not laid out with a trowel. It's subtle, and it moves, and it's an absolute first-rate piece of writing. That's what made me want to translate it. Now, that said, obviously it is very, very, very much a feminist play, and that is very much part of the added interest, because it's a feminist play from 1912, and she's writing a story about a woman whose every instinct is to be an independent woman. She is a strong character. She's a woman with a backbone. And how does a woman like that survive in this particular world, coming from an Orthodox background and living in a very traditional society in Eastern Europe? So it's at that milieu right away creates a dramatic clash that helps. The difference between now, a problem play, for example, the first play, for example, I would say, falls under the heading of what used to be called a problem play, meaning that the dramatist had a social wrong that was bothering her that she felt she should address. And that's what she was working on when she was writing. I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, Cecil, but it strikes me as a reasonable guess. Whereas, and with that in mind, you want to know what the playwright's intentions are. And when clearly that's a very, very major part of the playwright's intention, you have to respect that. You have to do justice to that. And in your adaptation / translation, because adaptation is always part of it, you want to do what you can to support the playwright's agenda, the playwright's message. In this particular case, it's more like, in the case of a play that really is a straight drama with social resonances, then I'm not thinking about that part of the agenda first. I'm thinking of the characters, the dramatic value of of each scene first, and then larger worldly connotations come second, if that makes any sense.
Thanks, Alan. Miro Minievsky is the translator of Sonia Idson, A Child, and part of your task was just simply pushing through the script. Because in both your cases, they were published pieces, but Lena Brown only wrote hers out in script, and I think there's only a tiny number of people who really have the patience these days to read Yiddish script, and Miro is one of them. But I thought maybe you would share the story of how the script or the drama got to you.
Okay, well, thank you. First of all, it's been so great to hear the play perform. That was my dream when I was translating it, was to see it performed. So I hope that, this book brings more interest, and maybe some company will want to pick it up, because it is relevant to today's world, and I completely identify with it. And I don't know if Lena Brown had any ulterior motives to write the play. It seems like the play was written for the drawer, because it had, so many themes, especially family themes, and gender, not wanting to conform to gender roles. And the way that I got the play was I was contacted by the family of Leah Brown, who had discovered the play in Lena's son's effects after he died, and it was a college notebook, and it was 100 years old. I mean, by now, it's more than 100 years old, so it's kind of like crumbly and, brown, and the writing was in pencil, and it was scrawled, and it was crossed out, and, and it was written from left to right to left, like it started on page 198, because the college notebook was stamped with the numbers starting from page 1, but she started from the back of the book because she was writing in Yiddish. Yet the play had really nothing about Judaism in it. It was just like a family drama about this Sonia Idson, who really did not want to get married, did not want to do any wifely duties. She just wanted to be a free spirit, and somehow she gets, I felt that she got bamboozled into marrying a younger man who maybe she wanted to be him rather more than be his wife. And and also I have to give credit to my wife, Hannah Pollack, who we do the translating together, and Hannah is like the genius in deciphering the handwriting. And the funny story is when we got the script, actually Jeffrey Brown left the whole notebook with us, and this was about 10 years ago. But we just opened to the book just to see if we wanted to do it, and we opened to a scene where a girlfriend of Sonia Idison's is coming to visit them from Kansas City. She hasn't seen them in 10 years, and she just shows up to see how they are, and she hears from Sonia that she's not getting along with her husband, and she's not making him happy, but it doesn't say her husband, it calls her husband Edith, which we thought was Edith. And Sonia and Edith are having a lover's quarrel, and this woman, Ida, comes and says, "You must leave Edith and come to Kansas City with me and get away from him. You need rest." And we thought, oh my God, this is like a lesbian drama. And so that's just, so
and
we
you
got
still
so
really
excited.
we never really solved the problem of Leo Edith's name, because it is a peculiar name that he has, because Edith is like Edith in Yiddish, but the male protagonist is Leo Edith, who she's married to, but it is a strange name to have chosen that name. So
Yeah.
it's a great story.
It's just all these underlying themes that you can just, I think to me, great art is when you can like identify and get emotional and make your own story from it. And that's what happens in all the scenes, I think. That I don't know what Lena Brown had in mind, but she certainly took me in a lot of different directions.
Mm-hmm. It's lovely. Should we take any questions or should we, for time, maybe one or two, just so we can. Are there any questions? Well, you know what? If there aren't, then we can just mingle later and after this and take questions more casually together in the hall.
Let's continue this conversation out in the hall. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you so much for coming.
Congratulations on the new book.